This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
And welcome to Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Dr. Johnny Lupinacci here. Special weekly segment. Love this. I'm excited about it every week. First Downs and Friday Night Lights, or as my guy Tim likes to sometimes say, busting balls here at Busted Pencils. But awesome stuff we get to talk about. Extracurriculars, especially around sports and community and the ways that young people through our school systems participate in so much more than just the stuff we're always usually talking about. Their learning, their classrooms, all those things. So got a guest today. Can't wait to get into talking with him more about a dimension of sports for our youth that we often pretty much forget about. Like we talk about coaches on this show. We've talked about parents and fans. And I've even mentioned the importance of trainers and, you know, all the medical people who often volunteer their time to making sure our young athletes are safe and healthy. But guess what, folks? We got a special topic of conversation today because can't have these competitions without officiating. And I'd like to introduce our guest today, Chad Schultz, right? The assistant director from the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association. Chad, how's it going today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on today. Very excited to talk about officiating. It's one of my big passions and really excited that I get to do that in this role. And so excited we're going to shed some positive light on officiating today.
Exactly right, Chad. As a coach and as a player and everything, it's like I've learned to value and respect referees, but I'm always like kind of at odds with them, which isn't really true. It's just the nature of the game. And it wasn't until a few years ago I had become an official that I learned so much more about the game. So I'm going to plug that, listeners out there. If you haven't in your life and you're close to a sport or you want to give to a community, it's a great way to learn even more about the sport. I mean, you'll never look at the game the same way again in a really good way. You'll understand so much more. If you want to have a conversation about this and drop a line to either Chad or myself or really anything related to First Downs and Friday Night Lights, you can give us a call at 608-557-8577. That's 608-557-8577. You can leave us a message in the mailbag. We'll check it out. We'll talk about it and we'll address it on one of our future drops. But Chad, before we even get into it, I mentioned I had become an official and learned so much. I don't do it anymore because I also learned it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in the sports I coach and play. But Chad, what tell us a little bit about how you got into officiating.
So how I got into it, I was going into my senior year of high school and I thought I wanted to learn how to officiate basketball and thought that it would help out with my playing, being able to talk with the officials that were out on the court and try to get basically a leg up advantage. After that, though, I was hooked at my first kids tournament that I worked that it was a different way to stay connected and involved. And then when I went off to college, I started working intramural basketball and at the college and rec program. And then from there, also started to work out in the community, working freshman and JV level games. And then I found out that I could kind of turn this into a career and passion for myself, where I worked in collegiate rec and intramurals for the last previous 12 years. And then in July, took this job here with the WIAA.
Yeah, Chad. So tell us a little bit more about this dimension of the work that you do at the WIAA and really kind of for our listeners, the importance of the association.
Yeah, so the importance of the association, it's membership driven. So all of the member schools across the state, we're basically helping to enforce the rules and regulations that they set forth. So besides overseeing a handful of sports, I'm also overseeing our licensing of all of our officials across the state. Also making sure that we're meeting certain educational requirements and then working with our conference commissioners and officials associations all the way across the board. Last year, we had over 10,000 licensed officials, which is the most that we've had in WIA history, which is great. But if you were asked the schools, they're still feeling that pinch right now of not having enough officials for some of their games and contests.
Yeah, so we need more referees. That's kind of been the case, and even though we've got the most ever that we've had, we need even more, which is good because it just means there's more competition, more young people participating in these activities, all of the sports. Chad, we got lots to talk about, but before we even move on to other things I'm curious about, maybe our listeners are. I just think if we need officials and someone's listening, they're like, "Hey, I think I could do that, or I might want to do that." How do they do it? How do you become a referee or an umpire or whatever you call them in the different sports?
Yeah, so each sport has their own language, whether it's a judge, an official, referee, whatever it might be. The easiest way is to just log onto our website, wiaawi.org. And on the homepage, there's an officials tab. Click on officials, and underneath that, you'll be able to register and license then at that point. Now, once you've licensed, you pay your fees. All that's required from a licensing standpoint is you take the rules exam and you watch the rules video that we put on that coaches and officials have to watch for each sport. From there, the best way then is to get connected with local officials associations that will help with your education, but then will also help to get you in the mix and hooked up with people to get assigned games and contests then at that point. So there's a couple different moving pieces that come with it, but the easiest way to get signed up is head to our website. All the literature is there that you need. You're able to go ahead and sign up today.
And Chad, if I understand it right, this is one of the things too. It's not volunteer. This is hard work. It's paid. It's certainly not like handsome pay, but you're compensated for your time to these competitions, right?
Yeah. So each school district or each conference, they have set fees that they assign for either the sub-varsity level or for the varsity level. Some of the conferences are able to pay mileage because they know they have to recruit from a farther, a wider scope. And so each official is actually an independent contractor. So you basically are running your own business. And so that's one of the things that we also like to highlight too, is that it's a profession, like you're a professional, because everything involved is how you're communicating with school administrators, setting up your contracts, the way you look out on the court and field. It's all part of you're selling a package essentially.
I always like to say to my players, you're playing this for life, not for like the next level necessarily. And I'm always giving the speech about, we're becoming better human beings by being part of a team. We're getting leadership skills that will help us in our families and our communities and in our jobs as we move forward. But every so often, it is also true that some of our players in our programs that will be their career. This will be their profession. And that's one of the beauties of this from just the sports angle too, as well as some of our players will be professional baseball players. Some of them will be professional basketball players or very high level. And officials are right in the middle of making decisions that determine outcomes. And it is stressful. Believe me, I've never really refereed a high level, like high stakes situation. And I can't imagine the pressure in it. So it's really hard to do. And like a decision is a decision. And then those decisions have implications. So, they can make their way when challenged all the way up to court, and so it's an interesting time. And like Chad said, precedent setting. That said, I would say almost 98.899, this is making a really big number, almost close to 100%, even with all of the tension of like, what do you mean that's a foul? Or like, and then it's, hey, better watch it, buddy. Or, I'm going to toss you, all the banter between coaches and referees. At the end of the day, it is just an awesome and essential part of our athletics programs and our extracurriculars. And I like, Chad, that you also threw in there like judges, because I have to imagine outside of my area of expertise, there are officials in debate. There are officials in, there's officiating.
Gymnastics.
And
gymnastics is the big one for judges. Yeah. So
this is awesome stuff, Chad. Just a couple of things before we wrap up with you, if folks are listening and they're thinking about, all of this I would say, what is the most exciting part of the work you get to do with officials and officiating and judging? I guess we could just call it officiating. I always call them the refs, the stripes, but those are my sports.
So this week is a big week. So at the National Federation level across the country, it's an officials appreciation week. And we're running one in the fall, winter, and spring season as well. And it's just a way for schools and everyone to say thank you and give back, because for a lot of the people that you're seeing out on the courts or the fields, they're your neighbors. They're the ones that you'll see in the grocery store, and they're in the community. And for a lot of people, it's not about the pay. Initially, when people get started, that's one of the perks and bonuses. But really, what ends up happening is people find a sense of community, a brother or sisterhood. And so people are participating in really getting connected with other like-minded people that love to enforce rules and just love to see great high school sport athletes. And it's a way to give back. And like you had mentioned earlier, without the officials, it's not a game anymore. It's just a practice, essentially.
Yeah, I love that. And really all of the dimensions. Here we are, Friday nights and first downs. This segment focused primarily around sports, because Tim and I love sports, but also around, like you said, Chad, community and the strength of democracy that comes through all of the ways we come together in our community, and our public schools, our districts, our sports programs, theater programs, art programs, all of these things, those extracurriculars that our students are involved in, is really kind of so special to us and such a part of this country's strength and democracy. So love, Chad, that you're part of that and sharing it from the perspective of the work that you get to do with officiating and officials. All right, so before we wrap up, folks, remember, if you want to join the conversation, maybe you have a story about an experience with an official or anything. This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk here with Chad Schultz from the WIAA, and you can call or text us at 608-557-8577. Leave us a message. We'll get to it, and we'll funnel that right into our First Downs and Friday Night Lights segments here weekly at Busted Pencils. So, Chad, before we wind down, right, which we're probably just winding up because I'm getting so excited from this conversation, what's your top moment from officiating? We'll each share a top moment and kind of close out today.
So I've been blessed to work the state tournament on the basketball side, and definitely was always one of my biggest goals and something I wanted to reach, that pinnacle. But once having a taste of that, I've enjoyed bringing other people with me. And so at my time at UW-Madison, I would take many students with me to games, and it would be their first varsity game or their first JV game, contest, whatever it might be. And just watching them work through the whole part of the game and contest, there's nothing better than that, where they're going to experience that something that I've done thousands and thousands of times now, having them experience that, and that feeling of accomplishment that you've done something great like that. That's definitely probably my proudest moments, is how many people I've brought into the game as well.
That's awesome, Chad. This is always a fun way to end. I don't even know. I think it's, for me, my top moment of officiating is how humbling it was to become a referee. I played hockey at a high level. I coach hockey at a high level. And at a time I was coming back into a new era of the game, I thought, what a great idea. In fact, in my coach training, they have like annual great coach training at USA Hockey. And USA Hockey said, we like all of our coaches at a certain level to be trained as officials. One, you can give back to the game in a lot of ways. Two, we just have found you coach better and you better understand the game if you've been an official. And I thought, oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. But you know what? They're right. We need so many officials because youth hockey is growing where I'm at, and we just don't have enough officials in the region. And so in order for them to have competitive hockey, we got to have good officials, and they have to have a certain skating level. And that's the other hard part, is you got some folks who are really good with the rules, but don't necessarily have the ability to keep up with the game skating wise. So became an official. Chad?
Yeah.
Jess?
Half of
I'm the worst official there ever was. I was terrible at it. I was missing calls left and right. Coaches were like, what are you doing? I was like, guys, I have no idea. I studied it in the book. I'm just not good at this. I got better at it, but it really put a perspective on the game for me to honor and admire what officials at all levels do, because it's so different than being in the game as a player, a participant, being a fan, or being a coach. It's a whole new dimension. So I was humbled by the experience. Chad, I cut you off. What were you going to say, my guy?
Yeah, half of it is just being in the right position to see what you need to call. And that's honestly a good chunk of being a good official, is making sure that you're in the right spot to see it.
That's good advice from Chad. Hey, listener, if you want to become an official, hit that rewind button a little bit, and there's information for how you can become an official listening to this podcast. But also, we'll have Jess drop it into the description. Jess, Chad, thanks for being here with us. Chad Schultz, thanks for busting pencils with us. And now for your moment of zen. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. Thanks for joining us on Busted Pencils. Remember, grab us on Monday when we drop the homeroom. Talk to y'all next week.